It was a strange morning, though at first glance nothing might have seemed too peculiar. However, outside the grocery store a queue was forming of gentlemen in perfect suits. They were not the kind of men one typically found queuing outside a grocer's before opening, men whose shoes were polished with enough shine to see your reflection in. They belonged to golf clubs and gentlemen's societies, yet here they were, arrayed in a curious procession down the pavement. The grocery store hadn't even opened for business. Its curtains were still drawn, the door locked. Why were the gentlemen there, you might ask? The answer was printed in a corner of the local paper, the paper edition of which gentlemen in particular still read at breakfast. An advertisement had promised pick and mix candy pennies per pound. A misprint, of course. Some careless compositor had nudged the decimal point a place too far. A mistake, yes, but a glorious one. The first to notice had been Mr. Schofield, a solicitor of no small reputation. He had clipped the ad with his sharp scissors, folded it neatly, and tucked it into his inner breast pocket as though it was a legal note of some importance. Mr. Carter spotted it next, then Mr. Parker, then a scattering of others, until the news spread, silently but insistently, through the invisible wires of the gentleman's network. And so, before the hour of 8, the pavement outside the grocer's was alive with well-tailored anticipation. "Morning, Schofield," muttered Carter, rubbing his gloved hands together. "I do hope they've replenished the licorice all sorts since last Thursday." Schofield, a taller man with less hair, sniffed. "Licorice? Far too pedestrian. I've come for the flying saucers. Wafer-thin, delightful little contraptions. They melt upon your tongue, Carter. Melt." Parker wrinkled his brow. "Childish nonsense. Nothing compares to a good giant jelly snake. Stretchy, substantial, something a man can wrestle with." Behind them, a rumble of polite disagreement spread through the line, for each gentleman had his own passionate allegiance to a particular confection. Debate was sparked: toffee versus fudge, bonbons versus jelly babies. It might have escalated further had a group of school children not come walking down the pavement, eyes wide at the sight of so many dignified men queuing outside the grocer's. "No, no," barked Mr. Schofield, waving his arms. "Back to school with you, young scamps." "Back to school you go," chimed Mr. Carter. The men watched the children pass, exhaling in unison, relieved. The thought of having to share the treasure trove of bargain pick and mix with children was intolerable. Somewhere midway down the line, Stan Butterworth spotted a familiar figure joining the queue, Mr. Foster, his employer. "Ah, Butterworth," Foster boomed, clapping his clerk on the back with unnecessary force. "Didn't expect to see you here. One doesn't picture one's staff at the shops so early, rather more thinking about their tasks. You're hoping for a raise this year, aren't you?" I'd stay clear of the banoffee fudge if I were you." Mr. Foster clearly wanted the fudge to himself and was prepared to make subtle threats about it. By now, the line had grown restless. Then, at last, footsteps echoed from within the store. Mr. Grover, the owner himself, emerged with keys. He stopped in his tracks, eyes wide. Before him stretched a ribbon of gentlemen in suits, all waiting, all staring at him. "What in the world?" Grover exclaimed. Several of the men were acquaintances of his from the Gentlemen's Club. "Morning, Grover," Mr. Carter said, far too cheerfully. "Lovely day, isn't it? Thought I'd pop in for some oranges." "Yes," added Mr. Schofield with equal falsehood. "Carrots for me. Can't beat a good carrot." Grover blinked. Oranges? Carrots? Something was off. Nevertheless, he unlocked the door. The moment it opened to footsteps, the queue dissolved into chaos. 20-odd gentlemen surged forward like hounds unleashed. They did not stroll, they did not amble, they rushed straight to the pick and mix. But when they arrived, their jubilant grins faltered. The price label spoke of a bargain, perhaps, but not the bargain promised in the paper. The pick and mix was still in the pounds per 100 grams, and not in the pennies. The gentlemen froze, then as one their eyes narrowed, their lips thinned, their gentlemanly veneer cracked. What followed could only be described as a stampede in three-piece suits. Grover, back in his office sorting the morning's post, looked up at the thunderous sound of approaching footsteps. 27 well-tailored figures burst through his door, waving newspapers and shouting in tones of outrage usually reserved for parliamentary debates. "What in the world?" Grover exclaimed, leaping from his chair. "Look here," cried Mr. Schofield, thrusting the advertisement under his nose. "Yes, yes, see for yourself," chorused Mr. Carter, Mr. Parker, and at least 5 others, each producing identical clippings as though presenting legal evidence. "This is a scandal, an outrage, a betrayal of trust." Grover paled. It was not merely the sheer number of them, it was who they were. They were barristers, businessmen, bankers, men who sat on boards and chaired committees, influential men, men who could make life very difficult for a grocer. He stammered, shuffled, dabbed his brow. "Gentlemen, please, it must be a misprint. Surely you understand." But they didn't understand. Or perhaps they did not care. They had been offered a bargain, and that was it to them. For what burned in their eyes was not reason, but something altogether more primal, the unshakable desire for sugar, for sherbet, for soft, chewy jelly shapes and crystalline fudge. Grover was one man, they were 27. He was outnumbered, outflanked, and utterly out-dignified. With a trembling sigh, he capitulated. "Very well. The price in the advertisement shall stand." The transformation was instantaneous. Fury gave way to glee, anger melted into triumph. The gentlemen, those pillars of society, rushed back to the pick-and-mix wall and descended upon it like a flock of ravens. Scoops clattered, bags bulged, flying saucers, licorice all sorts, bonbons, cola bottles, giant snakes, it all vanished in a sugar-fueled frenzy. By 8:30, the bins were empty. Not a jelly baby remained. No other customer that day so much as touched a single sweet. And so it was written in the unspoken history of the High Street that on one peculiar morning the gentlemen of the town proved that beneath their polished shoes and impeccable suits they were, at heart, simply grown boys, boys who were the most serious about their sweets.